Misunnat.
Adrian Kane came back to his hometown after 10 years to marry the girl he had left behind. Her name was Alina Hart, and every dollar he had earned, every scar he had carried, every quiet empire he had built in those 10 years had only one purpose: to make himself powerful enough to stand in front of her again and tell her why he had disappeared. But when his car stopped outside the old church on Briar Street, he saw white ribbons tied to the doors, guests walking inside, and Alina's father, Robert Hart, standing near the entrance with tears in his eyes. Adrian stepped out, thinking maybe it was someone else's wedding. Then he saw her through the open church doors. Alina Hart, the girl he had crossed 10 years of pain to return to. She was wearing a bridal dress, standing beneath white flowers and bright church lights, smiling softly as another man slipped a ring onto her finger. And the man beside her was Marcus Whitfield, the son of the same family that had destroyed Adrian's life and forced him out of town 10 years ago. For one moment, Adrian could not move. He had survived betrayal, prison cells, hunger, and men who thought a poor boy could be buried without anyone remembering his name. But nothing had ever hurt him like watching the woman he came back for choose the house that had ruined him. His first instinct was to leave before anyone saw him. He had not returned to beg. He had not returned to ruin a wedding. He had returned with a black velvet ring box in his coat pocket and 10 years of truth trapped in his throat. If Alina had truly chosen Marcus, then Adrian had no right to walk into the aisle and turn her life into another battlefield. He turned toward the church steps, ready to walk away with the only love he had ever known still burning quietly in his chest. Then he heard Robert Hart behind him. Alina's father stood near the last pew, pale and shaking, staring at his daughter like a man watching something he had helped destroy. His lips moved, almost too softly to hear. "Forgive me, Alina," he whispered. "I had no choice." Adrian stopped. Slowly, he turned back. The church was too bright for the darkness suddenly moving beneath the flowers and silk. Guests filled the pews, smiling, whispering, waiting for Marcus Whitfield to finally make Alina part of his powerful family. Victor Whitfield sat in the front row, silver-haired and calm, his posture straight, his face satisfied. Robert did not look proud. He looked trapped. Adrian stepped into the shadow near the last pew, where tall flower stands, and standing guests hid him from the altar. From there, he could see Alina, but Alina could not see him. Dominic moved quietly beside him. To everyone else, Dominic looked like a driver in a dark suit. To Adrian, he was his most trusted man, the one who found records, followed money, and noticed lies before they became traps. "Do we leave?" Dominic murmured. Adrian kept his eyes on Robert. "No. You know the groom?" "I know his father." "And the bride?" Adrian's voice dropped. "The bride was the reason I stayed alive." At the altar, the priest lifted his voice. "If anyone knows a reason this marriage should not take place, let him speak now or forever hold his peace." A normal silence fell, but Adrian saw Alina's fingers tighten around the bouquet. He saw her eyes move, not toward Marcus, not toward her father, but toward the church doors, as if some hidden part of her still remembered waiting for someone who never came. Marcus noticed too. He did not stop smiling. He only tightened his hand around hers, gentle enough for guests not to notice, firm enough that Alina's knuckles paled. Alina's lips moved. Adrian could not hear the words, but he knew what they looked like. "I'm sorry." Dominic leaned closer. "What did she say?" Adrian did not look away from her hand trapped inside Marcus's. "I don't know," he said. "But I want to know why she looks guilty at her own wedding." 10 years earlier, before Adrian Kane became a name powerful men lowered their voices around, he had been the boy behind Kane Auto Repair, the small garage across from Hart Flowers. He owned 2 pairs of jeans, one black jacket with a broken zipper, and a pride so sharp it made help feel like an insult. Alina Hart first spoke to him because her mother's delivery van died in the middle of Briar Street on a hot afternoon, blocking traffic while white lilies wilted in the back. Everyone honked. Everyone complained. Adrian wiped grease from his hands, pushed the van to the curb, and fixed the broken belt without asking for money. Alina stood beside him in a yellow dress, holding a box of roses, watching the way he worked. Not fast to impress, not slow to be seen, just steady, as if broken things deserved patience. When he finished, she asked, "How much?" Adrian closed the hood. Your mother already pays the shop when she can. That means you fixed it for free. That means the flowers will not die today. Alina looked at his hands, black with oil, scraped near the knuckles. Rich boys only know how to replace things, she said. You fix them. Adrian looked at her then, really looked, and something quiet moved between the garage and the flower shop that neither of them had a name for yet. After that, Alina began crossing the street with lunch wrapped in white cloth. At first, she said her mother had packed too much. Then she said the bakery had made an extra sandwich. Then she stopped lying and said, "Eat before you faint, and make me look dramatic." Adrian pretended he did not wait for the bell above heart flowers every afternoon, but he always heard it. Alina's mother, Mira Hart, saw everything and said nothing for 3 weeks. Then one rainy evening, she left a plate of pasta on the garage workbench and told Adrian, "A man can be proud and still hungry. Only fools confuse the two." Adrian never forgot that. He never forgot Alina sitting on the edge of the workbench, swinging her feet, telling him she wanted to turn Heart Flowers into the most beautiful shop in the county. He never forgot the way she laughed when he said he had nothing to offer except a repaired van and a bad reputation. "Then offer the repaired van," she said. "The world is already full of men offering lies." Mira loved that answer. Years later, before illness took her voice and then her strength, Mira gave Alina a sealed letter and said, "Do not open this until you feel yourself losing your own voice." Alina never opened it. The grief was too sharp. The envelope stayed hidden in her old handbag, moving from room to room like a secret she was not brave enough to touch. By 19, Adrian loved Alina with the fear of a poor man who knew love could be taken from him for reasons that had nothing to do with the heart. By 19, Alina loved him with the stubbornness of a girl who had never believed money made anyone taller. But Marcus Whitfield had been watching from the other side of town. Marcus was the golden son of Victor Whitfield, the man whose family owned buildings, banks, councilmen, and half the quiet favors that kept Briar Street alive. Marcus had been raised to believe losing was not pain. Losing was shame. When he was 11, he came second in a school debate and brought the silver medal home with proud hands. Victor looked at it once and placed it face down on the table. "Whitfields do not lose," he said. "If you lose, people learn they can step over you." Marcus never forgot it. He learned to turn wanting into ownership. He wanted Alina because she did not want him. He wanted her laugh because it was never aimed at him. He wanted her eyes because they softened when Adrian crossed the street, not when Marcus arrived with expensive flowers he had not chosen himself. The first time Marcus asked Alina to dance at the charity dinner, she refused politely. "I promised Adrian the last dance," she said. Marcus smiled for the room, but his fingers closed around her wrist beneath the table. "Do not embarrass me," he whispered. Alina tried to pull away. Adrian saw it from the service corridor where he had been fixing a generator, still in a black shirt with grease on his sleeve. He crossed the hall before anyone else understood what had happened. "Let her go!" Marcus laughed, but his grip tightened. "This is not your corner, mechanic." Adrian did not raise his voice. "Let her go." Marcus stood too quickly, too angry, and his mouth hit Adrian's shoulder when Adrian pulled Alina back. A drop of blood appeared at Marcus's lip. It was nothing. It was everything. Victor Whitfield saw his son humiliated in front of donors, judges, and men who pretended not to enjoy seeing a Whitfield lose even a small thing. That night, Victor decided Adrian Kane was not just poor. He was dangerous. Not because he had power, but because Alina chose him without needing him to have any. By midnight, 2 of Victor's men dragged Adrian into the garage across from Heart Flowers. Marcus stood by the workbench, wiping blood from his mouth, Adrian's phone in his hand. Adrian fought until one of the men bent his arm behind him, and Victor entered like a man stepping into a room he already owned. "You touched my son," Victor said. Adrian spat blood onto the floor. "Your son touched Alina." Marcus looked at the phone screen and smiled. "Her name is still open." Adrian twisted against the hands holding him. "Give me my phone." Marcus lifted it higher. "You still think she is yours to call?" Victor took out his own phone and called Rocco Belandi, a man Adrian had seen around town but never close enough to fear. Victor put the call on speaker. "Where is the girl?" Rocco's voice answered, flat and close. Heart flowers. Back room, blue dress. She is crying. Adrian stopped moving. The blue dress. Alina had worn it for the dinner because her mother had sewn the hem herself. Victor asked, "Is the back door locked?" "No." Victor looked at Adrian. "Leave tonight. Do not call her. Do not write her. Do not send one message. If you return, if she hears your voice again, you will not be the first person who pays." Adrian looked at Marcus holding his phone. "Let me tell her goodbye." Marcus stared at him for a second. Behind his polished face was something smaller and uglier than power. "No," he said. "She has heard enough from you." He typed. While Adrian struggled so hard the men slammed him against the tool cabinet. Adrian saw only broken pieces of the message before Marcus turned the screen away. "I am leaving tonight. Do not come after me. I thought love would be enough, but I was wrong. Marcus can protect you in ways I never can. Please forget me." Marcus sent it and tossed the phone onto the floor. Victor leaned close. "Now disappear." Adrian left town that night with a cracked rib, $13, and the belief that staying away was the last useful thing he could do for the girl he loved. Alina read the message in the back room of Heart Flowers with her mother's arms around her, and flowers dying in buckets at her feet. She did not scream. That was what worried Mira most. Alina just stared at the screen until her thumb went numb, then whispered, "He gave up." For 3 days, she did not leave the back room. For 3 weeks, she opened the shop like a ghost, smiled at customers, and waited for Adrian to cross the street and say it had been a mistake. He did not. For 3 months, she hated him badly enough to survive. Then her mother got sick. The shop bills grew. Robert Hart began meeting Victor Whitfield in private, and Marcus started appearing with flowers he had bought from her own shop. "I stayed," he said the first time he found her crying beside the empty delivery counter. "He left, Alina. I stayed." She hated him for saying it. But grief makes even unwanted voices sound steady when the world keeps collapsing. A year passed, then 2. Victor paid one bill, then another. Robert accepted one favor, then signed one paper, then borrowed against the shop, then promised future loyalty, without understanding how quickly a promise becomes a leash when a Whitfield holds the other end. Marcus did not force Alina all at once. He was too careful for that. In public, he was patient. He helped with deliveries. He sat with Robert when Mira's medicine was late. He walked Alina to her car when people whispered about the garage boy who had left her. In private, he corrected her laugh. Softer. He corrected her anger. Careful. He corrected her grief. Do not let him keep owning the room. Every kindness came with a hook. Every favor became proof. By the 5th year, people in town said Marcus Whitfield was a saint for waiting. By the 7th, Robert told Alina, crying, "Maybe peace is not always love. Maybe peace is enough." By the 9th, Victor made it clear that the shop, Robert's loans, and the family's name would all fall apart if Marcus was humiliated again. By the 10th, Alina accepted a ring she did not want from a man she did not love because the boy she had loved had told her to forget him, and because everyone around her had spent years teaching her that survival was something to be grateful for. Now, inside St. Mary's Church, Marcus smiled like patience had finally become ownership. The priest nodded toward him. "You may speak your vows." Marcus looked at the guests first, then at Alina. "Alina," he began, his voice warm enough to sound kind. "From the beginning, I knew you deserved steadiness. You deserved a man who would stay when others left. You deserved a family that could protect you from every mistake of your past." Adrian's hand closed at his side. "Every mistake of your past." Marcus said it like tenderness. Adrian heard the knife inside it. Alina's smile did not change, but her throat moved once. Robert lowered his head. Victor looked pleased. Marcus continued, "From this day forward, you will never have to look backward again." Guests murmured approval. A few women smiled like Alina was lucky. Then it was Alina's turn. She looked down at the ring Marcus had placed on her finger, then at him, then at the floor. "Marcus," she said softly, "you have been patient with me. You stood beside my family when things were difficult. You stayed when—" She stopped. Marcus's gaze sharpened. Robert gripped the pew. Alina corrected herself. "You stayed when I needed someone to stay. For that I am grateful. Grateful. Not happy, not in love. Grateful. To Adrian, the word sounded like a debt pretending to be a vow. Marcus accepted it like it was exactly what he had trained her to say. "That is enough," he whispered. The rings were lifted. Marcus slid his ring onto Alina's finger. "With this ring," he said, "I make you part of my family." Victor almost smiled. Alina reached for Marcus's ring. Her fingers trembled. Marcus leaned close. "Steady," Alina went still. "With this ring," she said, "I join my life to yours." Applause nearly began, but Robert suddenly shifted near the back, his eyes darting toward a side table where the marriage papers lay. Victor saw the glance and gave Robert one cold look. Robert immediately lowered his head. Adrian saw it. So did Dominic. "The documents," Adrian murmured. Dominic followed his gaze. "You want me to check?" Quietly. Dominic slipped along the side wall, not toward the altar, but toward the usher standing near Father Paul's small desk. He did not touch the papers himself. He leaned close and said something low. The usher frowned, looked toward the marriage license, then hurried to Father Paul. The priest raised his hands. "Now, by the power vested in me," he stopped. The usher whispered into his ear. Father Paul's expression changed. He looked at the marriage license, then at the witness line, then toward Robert Hart. Robert went pale. Marcus's smile faded for the first time. Victor's eyes narrowed. Alina looked from the priest to Marcus, bouquet trembling. The church went silent. The priest cleared his throat. "One moment," he said carefully. "There appears to be an issue with the witness signature on the marriage license." A low murmur passed through the pews. Marcus turned slowly toward him. "What issue?" Father Paul held the document closer to his chest. "This is not just a church form. This is the legal marriage license. The listed witness is not present, and the signature appears to have been added before today. I cannot legally continue until this is verified." Victor stood. "Father, this can be handled after the ceremony." "No," Father Paul said, nervous but clear. "It cannot." Victor's face did not change, but his voice became quieter. "St. Mary's has had our support for 30 years. The priest swallowed. "I know." "Then do not embarrass my son over a form." "I am sorry, Mr. Whitfield. I cannot pronounce a marriage on a document I believe may be invalid." That final word changed the church. It was small, but it was the first time all morning someone had said no to a Whitfield and survived the next breath. Marcus's face hardened. Alina saw it. Not the patient groom, not the steady man who had stood beside her family. The man beneath, the one she had glimpsed whenever she laughed too loudly, disagreed too quickly, or looked too long at roads that led out of town. Victor turned to Robert. "You should have checked this." Robert's shoulders collapsed. Alina looked at him. "Dad?" Robert opened his mouth, but no words came. Marcus stepped between them. "This is not your father's fault. Everyone calm down." His hand was still around Alina's. She looked down. "You're hurting me." Marcus released her quickly, then smiled for the room. "I'm sorry." Lower, only for her, he added. "Do not make this worse." Alina went still. Alina stepped back toward the side table without looking. Her bouquet brushed a champagne flute. It tipped, she caught it. Marcus grabbed her wrist to steady her, and she flinched. The glass slipped and shattered on the stone floor. Every head turned. Alina stared at the pieces like they were her fault. "I'm sorry," she said. This time the words carried. This time Adrian heard them clearly. And that was the moment he stepped out of the shadow. First Dominic saw him. Then an older guest. Then another. Whispers moved through the church. "Is that Adrian Kane?" "It can't be. He came back?" Alina was still looking at the broken glass when his name reached her. Her body went still. Slowly she lifted her head. Across the aisle, beyond the guests, beyond the priest holding the invalid license, beyond Marcus's hand hovering near her arm, she saw him. Adrian Kane, older, sharper, dressed in a dark suit, eyes carrying 10 years of silence. The bouquet lowered in her hands. For 1 second the church disappeared. She was 19 again, reading the message that ended her life before she knew life could end without killing someone. "I'm leaving tonight. Do not come after me. I thought love would be enough, but I was wrong." Marcus can protect you in ways I never can. Please forget me." And now the man who had supposedly written those words stood in front of her on the day she had almost married someone else. "Adrian," she whispered. Marcus turned. Shock, anger, and fear crossed his face before he buried them. "Adrian Kane," he said loud enough for the church. What a dramatic return. Adrian walked into the aisle. He did not look like a man interrupting a wedding. He looked like a man entering a room built from a lie. "Marcus," Victor stepped forward. "You have no place here." Adrian did not look at Victor yet. His eyes were on Alina, on the ring, on the broken glass, on the apology still trembling in her mouth. "I thought that too," he said quietly. Marcus gave a short laugh. "You thought correctly. Whatever memory brought you back, you are late." Adrian looked at the priest. "Am I?" Father Paul answered before fear could stop him. "The ceremony is not complete." The words crossed the room cleanly. Marcus's face darkened. Alina looked down at the ring on her finger. The confusion in her eyes carried something beneath it. Not hope, not yet. Hope would hurt too much. But air. A thin breath of air in a room where she had forgotten how to breathe. Marcus saw it and snapped. "You came back after 10 years just to stop my wedding?" Adrian stood still. "No." Marcus stepped closer. "No?" Adrian's voice stayed low. "I arrived before it became one." Part 2. The sentence stayed in the church like a match held near dry paper. "I arrived before it became one." Marcus had meant to make Adrian look desperate, jealous, and late. Instead, the priest stood with an invalid license in his hands. Robert Hart looked like a man drowning in his own silence, and Alina stood between two rings, one on her finger, one hidden in Adrian's coat pocket, though she did not know it yet. Marcus laughed, but the sound was too sharp. Listen to him. 10 years gone, and he walks in speaking like a judge. He turned toward the guests. He disappears from this town, breaks her heart, leaves her family to survive the damage, and now he wants to rewrite himself as the victim. Adrian did not defend himself. He looked at Alina. She hated that one look from him could still open every locked room in her heart. Marcus stepped closer. "Do not let him do this to you." Alina's eyes stayed on Adrian. "Do what?" Marcus lowered his voice. "Make you forget who stayed." That line found an old wound. For 10 years, it had been the wall Marcus built between her and every question she was too tired to ask. Who stayed? Marcus stayed. Who brought flowers after she cried? Marcus. Who helped Robert with the shop? Marcus. Who stood beside her at church when people whispered Adrian's name? Marcus. But now, with the priest holding an invalid license and Adrian standing where a ghost should have been, stayed did not sound like love anymore. It sounded like a guard outside a locked door. Alina forced herself to speak to Adrian. "Why are you here?" Adrian's face did not change, but his eyes did. "For you." A soft gasp moved through the guests. Marcus laughed. "For her? You ran from this town, left her crying, never wrote, never called, never came back, and now you say you came for her?" Adrian looked at him. "Yes." Marcus shook his head and turned to the church. "Do you all hear this? After 10 years, the man who abandoned her wants to become a hero." Alina flinched. Marcus saw it and became crueler. "Tell him, Alina. Tell him what he sent you." Adrian's eyes sharpened. "What I sent her?" Alina's breath trembled. She did not want to say the words. She had buried them under anger, grief, exhaustion, and the kind of acceptance that did not heal anything but made it possible to wake up. But Marcus had dragged the message into the room, and now everyone was staring. "No," she whispered. Marcus leaned closer, still smiling for everyone else. "Say it," Adrian said her name softly. "Alina." She looked at him, and that almost broke her. He said her name like it still belonged somewhere gentle. Her eyes filled, but her voice came out bitter. "Do not say my name like you did not destroy it." Adrian went still. Alina lifted her chin. "After the charity dinner, after they dragged you away and I called until your phone died, you sent one message." She swallowed. "One. I still remember every word." Marcus watched with satisfaction. Alina spoke the words as if they were glass in her mouth. "I am leaving tonight. Do not come after me. I thought love would be enough, but I was wrong. I cannot fight men like Victor Whitfield, and I cannot give you the life you deserve. Her voice cracked. The church went still. She forced herself to finish. Marcus can protect you in ways I never can. Please forget me. The silence that followed was not empty. It was wounded. Even people who had never loved Adrian felt the pain of the sentence. Adrian did not move. For 1 second, Alina thought silence meant guilt. Then she saw his eyes. Not shame, shock. No, Adrian said quietly. Alina's face hardened. Don't! I never wrote that. Her laugh came out broken. It came from your phone. I know. Your number. I know. Then do not stand here and make me feel crazy for believing what I saw. Adrian's voice dropped. My phone was not in my hand. Alina froze. Marcus's smile thinned. Adrian turned his eyes toward Marcus. He had it. Marcus's face went cold. That is pathetic. In the garage, Adrian said. After your father's men dragged me there. After you stood by the workbench with blood on your mouth and my phone in your hand. Alina looked at Marcus. For the first time, Marcus answered too quickly. He is lying. Adrian took 1 step forward. You looked at me and said, you still think she is yours to call? The color left Marcus's face. Robert Hart lowered his head. Alina saw it. That small movement from her father hurt worse than Marcus's denial. Dad? She whispered. Robert did not answer. Adrian's eyes stayed on Alina. I tried to call you, he said. I begged them to let me tell you goodbye. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Marcus snapped, Enough! Adrian did not look away from her. Then Victor called the man standing outside Heartflowers and asked where you were. Alina Shan went to her throat. Adrian's voice roughened. The man said you were in the back room. Blue dress. Crying. The bouquet slipped lower in Alina's hands. That night returned with cruel detail. The blue dress her mother had sewn, the back room smelling of wet stems and ribbon, her body shaking so badly Mira wrapped both arms around her, the phone in her hand, the message that made her stop waiting. Alina looked at her father again. You knew something. Robert's face collapsed. Alina, tell me. Victor spoke first. Robert is overwhelmed. Alina's eyes moved to him. I asked my father. The church went still. Victor was not used to being corrected. Robert gripped the pew in front of him. I knew Adrian did not leave freely, he whispered. The sentence broke something open. You knew? Alina asked. Robert nodded, tears rising fast. Not about the message, not then. But I knew Victor threatened him. I knew men took him from the garage. I knew Rocco was outside the shop. Alina stepped back as if the floor had shifted. And you let me believe he abandoned me? I was afraid. For 10 years? Your mother was sick. The shop was failing. Victor had already started helping with bills. He said if I brought Adrian's name back, if I questioned anything, you would suffer. Then after your mother died, I was too ashamed. Every year made the lie heavier. Alina's voice was small, but everyone heard it. You let me mourn a lie. Robert covered his mouth. I am sorry. Sorry does not give me back 10 years. Marcus seized the moment. There, your own father made choices. Do not put all of this on me. Alina turned back to him. I am putting exactly what belongs to you on you. Marcus's jaw tightened. You were broken when I found you. Because you helped break me. I stood by you when no one else did. You stood close enough to make sure I never healed. A murmur moved through the church. Victor's face turned hard. This is no longer a wedding. This is a public disgrace. Adrian finally looked at him. It became a disgrace the moment you tried to turn her life into repayment. Victor's eyes narrowed. Careful. Adrian did not blink. That word works only when people still fear you. Father Paul held the marriage license with shaking hands. I only need to know one thing, he said, his voice careful. Who authorized this witness signature? Robert shut his eyes. Marcus turned on the priest. You are not a judge. No, Father Paul said. But I am the one being asked to pronounce this marriage legal, and I will not do that with a document I do not trust. Alina looked at the license. For the first time since Adrian stepped out of the shadows, something changed in her face. Not shock, recognition. Dominic noticed it. Adrian noticed Dominic noticing, Alina? Adrian asked. She took a breath. Marcus turned to her. Do not. That command made her lift her chin. I noticed it 3 days ago, she said. Marcus froze. Victor's eyes sharpened. Robert looked at her in horror. Father Paul stared at her. Noticed what? Marcus asked. Alina pointed to the paper. The witness line. The license was brought to the house for final review. I was told to check my name, my date of birth, and the spelling before the ceremony. Her eyes moved to Father Paul's hands, but the witness signature was already there. A murmur passed through the church. Alina swallowed. I asked why someone had signed before the wedding happened. Marcus told me it was normal paperwork. My father would not look at me. Victor said I was nervous. Marcus stepped closer. You were nervous? Alina looked at him. I was trapped. The word landed harder than a shout. She turned to Father Paul. So I sent you the note. Father Paul's face softened with understanding. You sent it? I did. Adrian looked at her, stunned. Alina's voice trembled, but she did not look away. I did not know Adrian would come back. I did not know anyone would stop this wedding for me, but I knew one thing. She turned toward Marcus. A marriage that needed a fake witness before it even happened was not a marriage. It was a trap. Marcus stared at her. For years, he had mistaken her silence for surrender. Now he was watching silence stand up. You went behind my back? He said. Alina's eyes hardened. No, I went behind the lie. The church absorbed the words in total stillness. Robert began crying quietly. Victor looked at his son, then at Alina, then at Adrian, calculating the room he was losing. Marcus's voice dropped. After everything I did for you? Alina looked down at the ring on her finger. Everything you did came with a chain. I gave your family stability. No, you gave us fear and told us to call it stability. Marcus's face twisted. You think he can give you better? He pointed at Adrian. Look at him. Men like him do not return with love. They return with revenge. Adrian answered before Alina could. I came with a ring. The church went quiet. Alina's eyes moved to him. Adrian did not reach for the box, not yet, and I was ready to leave with it in my pocket if she'd chosen you freely. Marcus laughed, but panic had entered it. How noble! Adrian's voice stayed calm. I was wrong about one thing. What? Marcus asked. Adrian looked at Alina. She did not choose you freely. Victor stood fully now. Enough. Adrian turned to him. No, we have only started. Victor's eyes went flat. You think because you made money in whatever city took you in, you can come back here and accuse my family and my church? This church belongs to God, Father Paul said quietly. Victor looked at him, stunned by the interruption. The priest swallowed but did not lower his eyes. Not to you. The room changed again. Small acts of courage can break large rooms when enough people are tired of bowing. Adrian stepped closer to Victor. 10 years ago, who was outside Heart Flowers? Victor's jaw tightened. This is absurd. Adrian did not raise his voice. Who was outside the shop when you called from my garage? Robert whispered before Victor could stop him. Rocco. Alina turned to her father. Who is Rocco? Robert's face crumpled. Rocco Belandi, Victor's man. The man watching the back door that night. The name moved through the church like a match struck in the dark. Older businessmen near the front stopped whispering. One of Victor's men near the door looked at his shoes. Marcus's face changed so quickly most guests missed it. Adrian did not. Dominic already had his phone in his hand. Adrian looked at him. Find him. Dominic nodded and stepped away. Victor gave a low laugh. Rocco does not come when boys like you call. Adrian turned slowly toward him. For the first time that day, something almost like a smile touched his mouth. It did not reach his eyes. You still think I am a boy. Part 3. The name Rocco Belandi did not mean much to most of the guests at first. It moved through the church like a dirty secret some people recognized and others only felt. The older businessmen near the front stopped whispering. Father Paul's grip tightened around the invalid marriage license, as if paper could protect him from whatever had just entered the story. Alina stood with Marcus's ring still on her finger, but for the first time, she was not looking at it. She was looking at Adrian. You still think I am a boy? Those words had not been loud, but they had changed something in Victor's face. Marcus tried to laugh it off. This is embarrassing. You came to my wedding, stopped my ceremony, accused me of sending some old message, and now you want to summon men from the past like this is a courtroom. Adrian did not look at him. I did not summon the past. Your family did. Victor's eyes remained fixed on Adrian. The contempt was still there, but beneath it something else had begun to move. Calculation. Suspicion. A man hearing a familiar song played in a key he did not recognize. Rocco does not answer to you, Victor said. Dominic stepped closer, phone still in hand. He answered. The room went still. Marcus turned toward Dominic. Who are you? Dominic looked at him with mild disinterest. Someone who makes calls people answer. You think a driver can threaten me? No, Dominic said, glancing at Adrian. I think I do not need to. Victor lifted one hand, and one of his men near the door stepped outside. It was a small, practiced gesture, the kind that had moved people in this town for decades. Doors opened for Victor. Men obeyed Victor. Problems disappeared when Victor looked at them long enough. He turned back to Adrian. You have made your point. There is confusion. There is old pain. There is paperwork. But this church is still mine today. Adrian's eyes moved from Victor to the altar, to Alina, to the broken glass still shining on the floor. That is what you have always believed. Victor's jaw hardened. And what do you believe? Adrian's voice stayed quiet. That room stopped belonging to men like you the moment truth walks in. Before Victor could answer, the main doors of the church opened. Daylight spilled across the aisle. 3 men entered. The first 2 were silent, dressed in dark coats despite the brightness outside. But the man between them changed the air. Rocco Belandi was older now, thick through the shoulders, his beard touched with gray, an old scar near his left cheek. He did not hurry. Men like him never hurried in rooms where other people had reason to fear them. Half the church did not know him. The half that did became very still. Robert Hart reached for the pew beside him. Alina heard the sound and turned to her father. That is him? Robert nodded without lifting his eyes. The man from that night. Rocco stopped in the aisle. He had been looking at Victor, then Marcus, then Robert. But when Victor said Adrian's name again, Rocco's eyes shifted. He looked toward Adrian. At first, his face did not change. Then recognition moved through him slowly, and with it came something no one expected to see on Rocco Belandi's face. Color drained from his skin, his shoulders lowered by a fraction. Victor frowned. Rocco, remove Adrian Kane from this church. Rocco did not answer. He walked toward Adrian and stopped several feet away. 10 years ago, Rocco had watched Adrian Kane being held in a garage like a powerless boy. 10 years ago, Adrian had been a problem Victor paid men to remove. But the underworld had long memories. Names traveled through docks, clubs, private ledgers, and locked rooms. Somewhere far from Briar Street, the boy Victor had thrown away had become a man even men like Rocco measured their voices around. Rocco lowered his eyes. Don Kane, he said. The word struck the church harder than a shout. A woman near the front gasped. Someone whispered, Don? Father Paul went pale again. Marcus stared at Rocco. What did you call him? Rocco did not look at Marcus. His eyes remained lowered toward Adrian. Victor's face went still, then white beneath the skin. Alina looked from Rocco to Adrian. Don Kane. The name did not belong to the boy who fixed her mother's van. It did not belong to the boy who laughed when she brought lunch to the garage. It belonged to a man who had survived the world Victor threw him into and returned carrying power nobody in that church had expected. Adrian did not smile. He did not enjoy the gasp or the fear. Stand straight, Rocco, he said quietly. This is a church. Rocco straightened immediately. The obedience was worse than kneeling. It told the room Adrian had not asked for respect. He already possessed it. Marcus stepped forward. No, this is some performance. You worked for my father. Rocco finally looked at him. I used to. Then do what he said. Your father has not been able to tell me what to do for a long time. Victor's hand curled at his side. Rocco, be careful. Rocco gave a faint, bitter smile. I was careful for 10 years. That is why I am still alive. Adrian looked at Victor. You said Rocco would not answer to me. Victor did not reply. You were right about one thing, Adrian continued. He does not answer to boys. The silence that followed was almost unbearable. Marcus looked around, desperate to recover the room. This changes nothing, so men call him names now. He was still the man who left. Alina's face changed at that. The word left no longer landed the same way. It used to be a stone. Now it was a locked door with someone else's hand on the key. She turned to Rocco. Tell me. Rocco's jaw tightened. For a moment, he did not look like a feared man. He looked like someone standing in front of the one memory he had never managed to bury. I was there, he said. Victor sent me. I stood behind Heart Flowers and watched the back room window. You were in a blue dress. You were crying. Robert covered his face. Alina did not blink. And you told them? Rocco lowered his eyes. I did. Marcus snapped. Do not answer her. Rocco ignored him. Alina's fingers tightened around the bouquet stem until one white ribbon tore. Say the rest. Rocco nodded once. Victor's face hardened. Alina, think carefully. You do not understand what you are inviting into your life. Alina did not look at him. I have spent 10 years living inside what you invited into mine. Rocco took a breath. That night, after the charity dinner, Marcus Whitfield had blood on his mouth. Adrian Kane had 2 men holding him by the arms, and the phone in Marcus's hand was not his. Marcus's face went white. Robert started crying before Rocco said another word. Adrian's phone was open on your name, Rocco continued, looking at Alina now. He kept saying, let me speak to her. Victor's men were holding him. Marcus picked up the phone. Alina's hand moved to the ring. Rocco looked at Marcus. You looked at him and said, you still think she is yours to call? Then you typed the message. Alina's voice came out almost soundless. The message? Rocco swallowed. The one that told you he was leaving. The one that said Marcus could protect you in ways he never could. The exact words did not need to be repeated again. Everyone in the church remembered them. Alina remembered them most. They moved through her body like a curse returning to the mouth that made it. She closed her eyes. For 1 second she was 19 again, sitting in the back room of Heart Flowers in her blue dress, her mother's arms around her shoulders, her phone shaking in her hand while those words turned love into abandonment. When she opened her eyes, the past was standing in front of her wearing Marcus's groom suit. Marcus lifted his chin, but the polished mask was breaking around the edges. She needed to move on. The sentence was quiet, almost reasonable, almost human. That made it worse. Alina stared at him. So it is true. Marcus looked at the guests, then at Victor, then back at her. He was leaving anyway. Because your father threatened me, Adrian said. Marcus snapped. Because you were weak enough to be moved. The room pulled in a breath. Marcus hurt himself, but anger had already taken control. Do you know what it felt like? He said, turning on Alina now, voice rough. To watch you look at him like he had given you the world? He had nothing. He was nothing. And still, when I stood beside you, you looked past me to see if he had entered the room. Alina's eyes filled, but she did not lower them. So you punished me for loving someone else. Marcus's mouth opened. For once, nothing polished came out. I waited for you, he said finally. Alina looked at him until his eyes shifted away. You were there because you made sure he could not be. Marcus's face twisted. I made the cut clean. You would have spent your whole life waiting by that garage door. The confession was not proud now. It was cornered, bitter, and ugly. It came out like something dragged from him. Alina did not answer. She only looked at him until his eyes dropped first. That silence hurt more than shouting. Adrian did not move, but everyone close to him felt the danger in his stillness. Marcus saw it and tried to recover control. What? Are we pretending he would have stayed? He was already on his knees in that garage. My father said leave and he left. Adrian's voice was quiet. Your father had a man outside her shop. Rocco nodded once. Me, Alina turned toward him. You saw me crying. It was not a question. Rocco's face tightened. Through the back window. And you told them. I did. The honesty was brutal. It did not ask to be forgiven. It only stood there, ugly and undeniable. Rocco looked toward Victor. Victor called me from the garage. He asked where Alina was. I said she was in the back room of Heart Flowers. Blue dress. Crying. He asked if the back door was locked. I said no. Alina's hand dropped from the ring to her throat. Then he told Adrian, Rocco said, voice roughening. If he came back, if he called her, if he sent one message, he would not hurt Adrian first. He would hurt Alina. The church fell into a silence so heavy it seemed to press every person into their seat. Father Paul looked sick. Victor finally spoke, cold and controlled. I protected my family from a boy who had already put his hands on my son. Adrian looked at him. Your son grabbed her first. Victor's eyes moved to Alina. You were young. You remember it emotionally. Alina's voice was low. I remember his hand. Marcus added quickly. I barely touched you. Alina looked at him. And for the first time the memory returned without the fog Marcus had wrapped around it for years. The hallway. His hand, his anger, Adrian pulling him away, Victor arriving before truth could breathe. You grabbed me because I said no to a dance. Marcus's mouth tightened. You made me look like a fool for him. There it was. Not hidden anymore. Marcus Whitfield, stripped down to the wound he had built 10 years of cruelty around. Alina stepped back as if the truth had a smell she could not stand. All of this because I chose him? Marcus did not answer. He did not have to. Victor stepped in, his voice colder than before. This town does not run on teenage feelings. It runs on families, agreements, names. My son was made to look weak in front of people who watch for weakness. You think I let that stand? For the first time, Victor sounded less like a monster and more like a man trapped inside his own legacy. That did not make him better. It made him clearer. He had not protected love. He had protected pride. Alina looked at him. You ruined lives because your name was embarrassed. Victor's mouth tightened. I did what men in my position do. Adrian's eyes stayed on him. That is why men in your position should lose rooms like this. Victor looked away first. Robert rose slowly from the pew, shaking. Alina. She turned to him. Anger softened into something more painful. Tell me the rest. Robert began crying before he spoke. I knew Adrian did not leave freely. I knew Victor threatened him. I knew men took him from the garage. I knew Rocco was outside the shop. I did not know Marcus sent that message, but I knew enough to tell you Adrian was not cruel. And you let me believe he abandoned me. I was afraid. For 10 years? Robert's voice cracked. Your mother was sick. The shop was failing. Victor said if I brought Adrian's name back, you would suffer. Then after your mother died, I was too ashamed. Every year made the lie heavier, and I kept thinking one day I would tell you. Then Marcus was always there. Victor was always there, and I was still afraid. Alina's eyes filled again. You let me mourn a lie. Robert covered his mouth. I am sorry. Sorry does not give me back 10 years. Marcus seized the moment. There, your own father made choices. Do not put all of this on me. Alina turned back to him. I am putting exactly what belongs to you on you. Marcus's face hardened. You were broken when I found you. Because you broke me, I stood by you when no one else did. You stood close enough to make sure I never healed. The priest stood frozen with the invalid license in his hand. The guests who had come for a wedding were now witnesses to a life being unburied. Marcus pointed toward Adrian. He is not some saint. Look at him. Men bow to him. Rocco answers his calls. You think he came here with love? He came with power. Adrian's voice was quiet. I came with the truth. Marcus snapped. You came because you could not stand that she chose me. Adrian did not answer. Alina did. I did not choose you. Marcus stared at her. You were at the altar. I was at the altar because you spent 10 years making every other door feel dangerous. I gave you stability. Alina almost laughed, but it came out as a breath. No, you gave me rules. I called them stability because I was tired. Marcus's eyes flashed. You should have been grateful. The words came out too clearly, too honestly. Too much like the man behind the groom. Alina went still. Then slowly, she looked down at the ring. Marcus saw the movement. Alina. She touched the ring. Her hand trembled, but this time she did not hide it. Do you know how many times I apologized today? When the priest paused, when the glass broke, When your grip hurt me. She looked at him, tears sliding down her face. I was apologizing before anyone even blamed me. Marcus glanced at the guests. Stop. No. The word came clear. Alina twisted the ring. It resisted at first, caught against skin damp with fear. Then it slid free. She held it in her palm and looked at Marcus Whitfield, the man who had stood beside her for 10 years, only because he had cut the bridge behind her. You never loved me, she said. You controlled me. You used my pain to build your place in my life. You used my silence as permission. You used my father's fear as a contract. And today, that ends. Marcus's face went white. Robert cried openly. Adrian watched Alina, chest aching, because this was not the girl he had lost standing up. This was the woman she had become, saving herself in front of the people who mistook her silence for consent. Marcus whispered, "Do not do this." Alina looked at the ring one last time. This was never a wedding. She placed it on the small table beside the invalid license. It was proof. No one spoke. The ring sat beside the paper that had failed to make her Marcus's wife, and the whole church understood what she meant. Proof of his control, proof of Victor's pressure, proof of Robert's silence, proof that Alina had reached the edge of a life built from lies and taken her hand back. Marcus stared at the ring. You think you can just walk away? Alina shook, but she did not apologize. Yes. He reached for her wrist. You are not leaving this church with him. Alina stepped back before he touched her. Do not touch me. The whole church heard her. She lifted her chin. You do not get to decide where I walk anymore. Victor moved then, anger no longer hidden. This has gone far enough. Adrian turned toward him. It went too far 10 years ago. Victor's eyes cut to Rocco. You think because this man calls you Don, you can threaten me in my own town? Adrian stepped closer, calm and quiet. No, I think because I came here with mercy, you are still standing. Victor's mouth tightened. Is that a threat? Adrian looked at him for a long moment. That is the mercy I came here with. Victor understood. Marcus did not. Marcus was still looking at Alina and the ring on the table, still trying to survive the impossible fact that she had removed it in front of everyone. Alina, he said, almost pleading now. After everything I did for you? Alina's tears slowed. Everything you did was to keep me from knowing what he had already sacrificed. Marcus shook his head. He left. Alina looked toward Adrian. For 10 years, those 2 words had ruled her life. He left. Now she saw the cage. Around them. He left because he was threatened. He stayed away because he thought it kept her alive. He became powerful somewhere far from her, and still came back not as a king demanding tribute, but as a man standing in the back of a church, ready to walk away if she had truly chosen someone else. She turned back to Marcus. You stole his goodbye. Then to Victor. You stole my choice. Then to Robert. And you buried both because fear was easier than honesty. Robert sobbed, but she did not comfort him. Not yet. Some wounds needed to remain open long enough for the right person to feel them. Victor lifted one hand, but none of his men moved with the confidence they once had. Rocco stood in the aisle. Dominic stood near the back. Father Paul held the invalid license. Half the town had heard the confession. The old fear that had protected Victor Whitfield for years cracked under too many witnesses. Rocco looked at Victor and spoke quietly. No one touches the hearts again. Victor's face hardened. You forget who made you. Rocco shook his head. No, I remember exactly who used me. Adrian did not look away from Victor. Walk out while you still can do it with dignity. Victor's jaw tightened. For a moment, it looked like pride would make him foolish. Then he looked at Marcus, at the ring, at the guests, at Rocco, and finally at Adrian. He understood what Marcus still could not. The room was lost. "We are leaving," Victor said. Marcus stared at him. "You are leaving?" "You have said." "Enough." Marcus's face twisted. "I said enough? You did this too." The words slipped out, ugly and loud. More guests heard it. Marcus realized too late and shut his mouth, but the damage was done. Father Paul lowered the invalid license onto the table beside the ring, like both objects had become evidence on an altar. Victor walked down the aisle without looking back. His men followed. Marcus stayed 1 second longer, staring at Alina as if willpower alone could put the ring back on her hand. It could not. He left with nothing but a groom's suit and the sound of a church that no longer believed him. When the doors closed behind the Whitfields, the room did not become peaceful. Peace was too clean for what remained. It became honest. Alina turned toward Adrian. The whole church seemed to disappear in layers. Guests, flowers, priest, invalid license, Marcus's ring, Victor's silence, Robert's tears, Rocco's shame. Adrian did not move toward her. He did not open his arms. He did not claim victory. He only stood there, giving her the one thing Marcus never had: space to decide without pressure. Alina took one step, then another. She stopped in front of him. "For 10 years, she whispered, "I thought you left because I was not enough." Adrian's face broke in a way no enemy had ever managed to break it. "You were the only reason I survived leaving." Alina shook her head, crying harder now. "I hated you because it was easier than believing you had chosen to live without me. I never chose a life without you. You stayed away from me. I stayed away because I was afraid. You were trying to keep me safe. And I left you alone with the people who hurt you." Alina stepped into him then. Not carefully, not politely, not like the bride Marcus had trained her to be. She wrapped both arms around Adrian Kane and held him like the last 10 years had finally collapsed between them. "I am sorry," she cried against his chest. "I am so sorry. I thought you left me. I thought you stopped loving me." Adrian held her carefully, but his voice shook. "Do not apologize for believing the lie they buried you under. But I was wrong about you. You were lied to. I should have known. You were 19. You were hurt because of me." Adrian closed his eyes. "No, I survived because of you." She lifted her face. "Then do not leave me alone again." Adrian looked at her for a long second. Then slowly, he reached inside his coat. The whole church went silent. From the same pocket where he had carried 10 years of unfinished truth, Adrian took out the Aitaoi black velvet ring box he had brought to Briar Street that morning. Alina's breath caught. Adrian lowered himself to one knee in front of her. Not as Don Kane, not as the feared man the room had just learned to fear, but as the garage boy who had once fixed her mother's van because the flowers would not survive the heat. "I came back today to ask you this," he said, opening the box. "I thought I was too late. Maybe I was. Maybe 10 years can never be given back." His eyes shone, but his voice did not break. "But if there is any part of your heart that still remembers mine, Alina Hart, let me spend the rest of my life proving that I should have found my way back sooner." Alina covered her mouth, tears running down her face. Adrian looked up at her. "Will you marry me?" For 1 second she could not speak. Then she laughed through the tears, the same broken, beautiful sound he had carried in memory for 10 years. "Yes," she whispered. Adrian's eyes closed. "Yes?" he asked, as if the word was too large to trust the first time. Alina nodded, crying and smiling at once. "Yes, Adrian. I will marry you." He rose slowly. This time, when he touched her, he waited for her to come closer. She did. Adrian slid the ring onto her finger. It did not feel like a claim. It felt like something stolen returning to its rightful place. Alina looked down at it, then back at him. I waited for you longer than I hated you. Adrian's thumb brushed one tear from her cheek. Then let me stay longer than the pain. She rose onto her toes and kissed him softly on the lips. In front of the church that had almost watched her become another man's wife, Alina Hart kissed Adrian Kane like goodbye had finally lost. No one clapped at first. The moment was too sacred for noise. Then Father Paul lowered his head. Robert covered his face and wept. And somewhere near the back, Dominic looked away with the faintest smile. Alina rested her forehead against Adrian's. My mother left me a letter, she whispered. I never opened it. Adrian's voice softened. Do you want to? She looked toward the church doors, then toward Hart Flowers across the street. Not here. Adrian nodded. Then we go where she left her voice. They left the church together. Not hurried, not hidden, not like a scandal. Robert watched them with tears falling down his face. Father Paul stepped aside. She walked out because, for the first time in 10 years, the door was open and no one's fear was stronger than her feet. Outside, the rain had stopped. The church steps shone under pale daylight. Across the street, Hart Flowers stood with its old sign and windows full of lilies meant for a wedding that had not happened. Beside it, Kane Auto Repair sat shuttered, its faded blue letters almost gone. Alina looked at both places and felt her beginning and ending staring back at her from opposite sides of the road. Adrian stood beside her, close but not crowding. Do you want to go home? He asked. Alina laughed once through tears. I do not know where that is right now. Adrian looked at the flower shop. Then we start with somewhere that knows your name. They crossed the street toward Hart Flowers. Dominic followed at a distance, already speaking quietly into his phone about records, debts, Robert's hidden obligations, and the quiet pieces of a cage that needed to be taken apart one by one. At the flower shop door, Alina stopped. Her reflection in the glass startled her. White dress, tear-streaked face, no veil, no bouquet. Marcus's ring gone, Adrian's ring on her hand. She looked like a bride who had escaped a painting before the frame closed. Adrian stood behind her, reflected in the glass too, dark-suited, controlled, dangerous, and somehow still the boy who once fixed a van so flowers would not arrive late. I do not know how to walk in like this, she whispered. Then walk in as you are. Everyone will talk. They already are. That was not comforting. I know. She laughed unexpectedly. It was small, but it was hers. Not measured, not approved, not softened for Marcus. Adrian heard it and looked away for a second because if he looked too long, he might break. You remember it? She asked. Your laugh? Adrian said. I survived years with that sound. She pressed her lips together. Do not make me cry again. I am trying not to. She opened the door. The bell above Hart Flowers rang. The same bell that had rung when she was a girl carrying buckets of roses, when her mother shouted from the back room, when Adrian crossed the street, smelling of oil and sunlight. The shop smelled of lilies and wet stems. Alina stepped inside and stopped. For a second, she expected the past to hurt too much. Instead, the shop held her. Not gently, not completely, but enough. She went behind the counter, opened the old drawer beneath the register, and pulled out a small sealed envelope, yellow at the edges. Her mother's handwriting waited on the front. For my daughter, when she forgets her own voice. Alina's hands shook. Adrian remained by the door until she looked at him. Come here, she said. He did. She opened the letter. The paper inside smelled faintly of roses and thyme. Alina read it once in silence, then again aloud, her voice breaking on every line. My Alina, if the day ever comes when the world makes you feel small, remember this. I never raised you to live on someone. else is mercy. I raised you to know your own voice. Love should never make you smaller. A man who loves you will not ask you to disappear so he can feel tall. A family that loves you will not buy your silence and call it protection. And if you ever stand in a room where everyone tells you to be grateful for a cage, walk out. I will be with you in every step. Alina pressed the letter to her chest and cried. Adrian did not tell her not to. He only stood near her, exactly where she had asked him to stand. Robert came to the doorway minutes later, broken, but no longer hiding. I cannot ask you to forgive me, he said. Not today, maybe not ever. I just need you to know that I loved you even when I failed you. Alina wiped her face. Love without truth is not protection, Dad. Robert nodded. I understand. That now. No, she said softly. You understood it then. You were just afraid. He lowered his head. Yes. She did not soften it. Tell the truth. To the lawyer, to the court, to anyone Victor tries to scare. Tell everything he made you sign, every payment, every favor, every time you thought silence would save me. Robert wiped his face. I will. Adrian stepped back, letting it remain between father and daughter. That was how the day ended. Not with revenge, not with Victor defeated loudly enough to satisfy a town hungry for spectacle, but in a flower shop that had survived too many debts, with a woman in a white dress holding her mother's letter in one hand and Adrian Kane's ring on the other. The first week after the almost wedding was not soft. Alina did not wake up healed because truth had finally arrived. Some mornings she opened heart flowers and wanted to throw every white lily into the street. Some afternoons she hated Adrian for leaving even while understanding why he had. Some nights she read the old message again, not because she believed it now, but because her body still remembered the pain before her mind could correct it. Adrian did not rush her. He did not ask when she wanted a date. He did not turn the proposal into a demand. Every morning, he left coffee on the small table outside the shop with a note that said only, "Here. Not sorry. Not forgive me. Not I love. You. Just here." On the 7th morning, Alina opened the door before he could walk away. Why here? She asked. Adrian looked at the coffee, then at her. Because I left once. You were forced. I still left. And now? He met her eyes. Now I want you to know exactly where to find me. She looked at the note in his hand. I am still angry. Then I will stay while you are angry. Her mouth trembled. I am going to ask hard questions. Ask them. About where you went. About what you became. About who calls you Don Kane. I will answer. And if the answer is ugly, Adrian's voice was steady, then I will tell you the ugly truth before anyone else can use it to hurt you. Alina studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. Come in. Adrian entered Heartflower slowly, as if the shop were more sacred than any church. Months later, when the legal papers were untangled, when Robert testified, when Victor Whitfield's quiet control over Briar Street began breaking piece by piece, when Marcus left town with nothing but the name he had once used like a crown, Alina stood one evening between Heartflowers and the restored sign of Kane Auto Repair. Adrian had reopened the garage, not because he needed the money, but because some places deserved to be healed where they were first broken. The bell above Heartflowers rang behind her. Adrian looked up from across the street, grease on his hands, for the first time in 10 years. Alina smiled. You came back late, she called. Adrian crossed the street toward her. I know. She lifted her hand, the ring catching the light. Then stay long enough for late to become worth it. Adrian took her hand, for the rest of my life. And this time, when the bell above Heartflowers rang, Adrian Kane did not leave.